Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We want to project today the Hacienda de Lontananza, located in the municipality of San Rafael, better known, the places that there are, in public companies of Medellin, after, the gentleman. Very important this hacienda because it has a breeding of white cattle Orejinegro, of the best genetic quality. Made based on a lot of sacrifice and hard work during 12 years. This cattle ranch offers to the commercial cattle breeder pure cattle, of high genetic content, so that he can incursion in these cattle ranches with a final fruit, which is the crossbreeding of black and white cattle in Zebu cattle. We seek with this then, to project the genes that we have of the pure herd in cattle ranches. I repeat, commercial, hopefully pearl white. The crossing of these animals gives in spectacular form animals F1, or crossed, or half-blood, which have within their genetic composition 50% Taurus and 50% indigo. The reason for these crossbreeding is to seek with them, that the cattle yield the greatest amount of usable meat, a good area of the eye of the loin, a good marbling, that is the fact that there is at intramuscular level, inside the muscle, which gives a veining and a supremely good flavor to the meat. This is synonymous of palatability, taste and sensory quality to the meat that we consume. We seek then with this, the contribution of the black-eared white cattle to the Colombian Zebu livestock, which we all know is 90% of our herds. The economic impact that we want to generate with this is an animal that was made in unfavorable conditions of mountains, foothills, poor quality passes, or rather of regular quality, but when one gives the opportunity to have forage of optimal condition, it responds genetically to what we want. We also have purebreds of high condition and genetic predisposition for milk production, for which we are making all the records at 4 months of age, at the most productive time of milk of the female, to know those cows whose offspring are heavier at this age, and to have a genetic condition to offer as a condition for milk production. In the case of beef cattle, more specifically beef type, a biotype that we want to offer is the one that gives us a higher carcass yield, and we also want that carcass to show us a different condition than what we normally offer with commercial cattle. These steers are obtained at 24 months, with 520 kilos and after deboning with a yield of 58 to 60%. We also want to have animals adapted to the environment, with a good phenotypic condition, even, linear, with good back, good haunches, with good behavior at local level. In any of the strata we have in Colombia, we preferably work for humid forest, premontane rainforest, very humid forest, with conditions for meat production at these altitudes and in these conditions of precipitation, relative humidity above 80 to 85% and temperatures ranging between 28 and 32 degrees Celsius. With these conditions we offer a genetics adapted to all thermal floors, from sea level to 2,000 meters without any problem. It is also important for you to consider that this genetic offer we have is one of the greatest we have in the country, because they are European cattle from more than 500 years ago, and therefore they offer resistance, docility, morphological changes, and a high level of resistance, docility, important morphological changes in hillside areas, such as a slight arching of the back, which facilitates grazing. Very thin legs, to graze high areas, and at the same time humid areas, and a rusticity. Looking for forage, from inferior quality to high quality, This is a very heterogeneous cattle in grazing behavior. When we handle pastures of great condition mixed with high-protein legumes, in this case for example the buttercup, we find very large responses in daily weight gains, around 750 to 800 grams. This is good here and in any part of the country. These gains are projected to the year and 18 months, with similar behaviors, and we obtain animals that really behave from then on in their productive life, with very good averages in these gains. Livestock comes from winning. Those who have ventured into the crossbreeding of this cattle, with the pearl, have them in the areas of the Middle Magdalena, in very fertile areas, with extraordinary conditions in forage. We are talking about an Angleton, we are talking about Climacuna, we are talking about Star, and we are talking about other pastures. A very good condition. We would say that this is a privilege, which is given to the additional breed. But when we take it to arid, semi-arid or dry areas, the cattle also behaves very well with forages such as Brachiaria decumbens, Brachiaria humidicola, native grasses or Pintero or Uribe or Juragua and Hyperigenia rufa, which are drought-tolerant grasses, and conditions in soils ranging from loam to sandy loam, clay loam. In these soils also behaves well, not with 750 or 800 as the previous one, but with gains very close to 600 grams, which are also still good, with a national average of 300 grams, which is what the experimental results and the analyses that have been done in the country show us. When we go to much higher areas, higher, towards the 1,800 and 2,000 meters zone, 800 and 2,000 meters, we find very similar responses from the animals, with a behavior that one thinks that the animal is not going to have, and he demonstrates it. They are animals with good gains, they do not stop reproducing, and they continue having the biotype that we want. What do we observe in these areas? A slight behavior of, the animal bristles the hair because they are normal conditions of height, of cold. That is an adaptive response, and a response that he has as a behavior, but this animal has important conditions at skin level. It is a thick skin, resistant to external parasites such as the nush, and parasites also as the tick, but it has also been found a very good response with internal parasites at the level of the liver, and at the level of other important parts. These animals in the higher zones, people are afraid that the response is not equal. Logically, if we make a good crossbreeding, choosing females of very good quality for males of good quality, we find a superior response. If we find females of bad quality, mated with good males, we are not going to find the same response. That is obvious. We must look for the best so that it gives us the response. I emphasized in previous programs, with the farms, that hybrid is the crossbreeding between European animals with Indicus animals, that is between species, Indica species, Taurus species. When we make crossbreeding, or rather mating, between Taurus and Taurus, we said that it was a crossbreeding. And the response will not be the same as the hybrid vigor because there is a very big genetic distance between the European and the Indicus. I also emphasize that the animals that we offer are also an alternative to make crosses with European animals. In fact, we already have responses with Holstein, finding lactation, starting at 20 to 25 liters, and ending in 6 or 7 liters in lactation of 240 to 270, that is good here in any part of the world. We also found answers in the high zone for meat production, that is to say, in Calanta for example, we worked, in the zone of Santa Rosa, in the zone of Entre Rios, and in the zones of San Pedro, some crosses with black and white, with other European breeds, finding very favorable answers towards some palatability, better than the Zebu, some marbling, not as good as the, with the Indicus, but significant and a very good richness in fatty acids of economic importance for the growth, which is given in the human, that importance between 2 and 5 years, hopefully starting the life of each person. When these important fatty acids are consumed, we speak of oleic, linoleic and linolenic, as fatty acids of much trajectory. Mr. Cattleman, you really want to win. We want to emphasize the importance of the black-eared white cattle in the crossbreeding, either as a terminal crossbreeding F1 for slaughtering the males and the females for reproduction, or the alternative of having the female F1 for reproduction, and make a terminal crossbreeding, with a third breed, or with a retrospective crossbreeding of the breed. And then that animal, take it as the final animal for slaughter. For butchering, what does that indicate? We are interested in producing a lot of meat. We are not interested in the individual. We are interested in the amount of meat per animal per hectare and per farm, not how much an animal yields alone, but how much meat we are getting per hectare. Remember that the production per hectare in Colombia, is around 200 to 300 kilos, and we with cattle ranches of this type, we are reaching 1,500 and 2,000 kilos, which we already see a very important advance, as a result of crossbreeding. Lontananchas already has results of crossbreeding of the black and white Orejinegro in Zebu in the area of Barranquilla. In the area of Neiva, already in Huila, we have very flattering results and people have begun to ask for this type of information and this type of cattle. What is the performance? We also found that X-crosses, in areas almost in the Paramo, we had the experience with black-eared white in the area of Cundinamarca, and in the area of Pacho upwards, towards the high part of the Black River, finding also satisfactory answers. But that do not scare us, even less than in others, because that is showing us that he has this great capacity of adaptation to many areas. How does the animal reflect that? In consuming forage at any time of the day, in ruminating at any time of the day, and in mating at night, in the morning, in the afternoon, at noon or at any time of the 24 hours of the day. So this is a very big recommendation. Use good breeds, to obtain good results. Let's not use mediocre animals, so that we do not blame the breed that does not work. When we are the ones who do not do things well, we are the ones who are called to straighten the way for production and productivity in the country, to export meat of optimal condition to other countries that require it and that are crying out for it. Because our meat in black and white Orejinegro is a very soft meat, of very rich flavor, and that is an appetizing meat. In crossbreeding with Zebu, already explained to satiety in seminars that we have carried out in Calanta, in our slaughterhouses in Colombia, and that demonstrate us that it is a competitive meat at national and international level. Soon we are going to work with the Camagüey meat packing plant to analyze carcass yields, meat yields after deboning, and other ingredients that have to do with the quality of the meat. Remember that quantity is not the same as quality. Quality is measured by many factors that are intrinsic within it, and the quantity is according to the type of fattening we have. we do not need animals with a lot of belly, a lot of barrel, but animals that with a sufficient barrel to lodge the necessary forage will give us the maximum yield in quality of usable meat and in both cold and hot carcasses. We also want to share with you the achievements that have been obtained with the work done at the level of fairs of Barranquilla, for in this case Baranoa, Sabanalarga, Valledupar, if Eastern Plains especially in Moluccas, where already the cattlemen who have bought these white Orejinegro specimens have asked us to make a fair in Barranquilla. They have asked us to follow up on the information that they have already started to have so that the results in terms of figures, in terms of measurable values, can reach you, gentlemen cattlemen, and we can talk about it properly, not in theory or in memory, but with data that are really the ones that have the truth. The one who has the information has the truth. That is why I insist, keep the records, the necessary primary information of the crossbreeding so that later on you can enter at a competitive level and enter in each one of the fairs, exhibitions, any basket that is made at a cattle level, either auctions, video auctions, or direct sales at farm level. We can present those results and each one can share them and know them, so that we can then present those results, and know them and thus be able to compete with quality, with animals of very good condition, and with really good crossbreeding, so that the production we have is certain, so that there is no doubt that what we are offering is true, and thus be able, with seriousness in the business, to have again the possibility of being meat exporters, which is what we are looking for. At this moment there are also orders for black and white embryos, for the Dominican Republic and in general for some parts of Central America, but it is not ideal at this moment to venture into this technological area, recognizing that it is very important because we still have a lot to do in production and productivity at the field level, before introducing technologies if we do not sufficiently improve the forages and the management that the animals require to give us that guarantee of purity. In a crossbreeding and final product, the yield in meat and the yield in carcasses or in milk production, depending on what you may choose in your cattle ranches. Attention cattle breeder, if you want to gain in fertility, longevity, precocity and weaning and fattening weights, you must make your crosses with cattle of European origin of the bond breed, that has an adaptation of 500 years to our lands. Bold Lontananza breeding the best genetics at your service. Information criadorobaldlantanza@gmail.com. Briefly, I would like to introduce a topic, which for the cattlemen would be of trajectory and of great importance in their cattle ranches. When one has a cattle ranch of this type and offers genetic material, one must make a very good accompaniment with the institutions of the sector that works in the genome, the genotyping of the animals, to guarantee that what is really sold is racial purity and not any animal with a paper. The paper of registration of racial power is endorsed by a Socrialo. But the genome is studied by Agrosavia and it is in agreement with us. That is why we say that there are already animals that genetically are prepotent, that already have the capacity to offer genes for milk at 4 months of age, which is very important. At weaning, where the maternal ability is studied, both of that female and the calf's ability is showing its genetic capacity with milk production. And finally studies are being done for the year and 16 months of age, where the gain is already individual, where the genotype of the animal, what it has inside in its genes, is showing that great capacity. So, let us get together with the institutions that can really help us, because in this country selfishness has killed us for 100 or more years. and we want to work each one on his own side, and when he obtains an additional profit or an importance in his livestock, he keeps it and does not share it. Let us be proactive, let us be people who compete with quality but with honesty with the people. Let us offer what each one of us obtains, and then I invite you to make a real follow-up of the cattle ranches, not only from the typical break point of view, with scales, with pre- and post-weaning follow-up, but with a genome study as complete as possible, the genome study of 1,000,000 pesos per sample. That is not the case anymore. They are already a little cheaper studies, because people have understood that the institutions of the agricultural sector, the government has understood that the cattle breeders need institutional support to truly obtain the meanings that they have, that they want, in the herds they manage. So I invite you, when you buy a bull or a female for reproduction, to look at the conditions not only of the genome. Remember that milk production is guaranteed with very well selected breeders. And here we go back to what we said a long time ago. But let us remember again. When you buy a bull, study all his pedigree, study what he has in grandmothers, great-grandmothers, mothers and fathers in general, to have the guarantee at least in part that what you are getting is good. And in addition to that, look at the phenotypic part. That is important. In beef cattle there is a high correlation between type and production. What does that mean? That when an animal is well conformed, linearly well defined in its biotype, that same condition prevails in a scale in the different stages of its productive life. Likewise, when the selection is going to be made in milk production, we must have the direct contact of those grandmothers, great-grandmothers, and mothers to choose a reproducer with that tendency. So the very cordial invitation is that we go hand in hand with the people who have the well-established parameters for each of the breeds, and especially today that concerns us, the black-eared white. Let's look at the benefits it offers, both in meat and milk. Thank you all very much. You are cordially invited to the Lontananza Cattle Ranch. Get to know it, see what we have to offer you, and then you can choose the alternative that is best for you. In any part of the country there are very good animals in many places, but we want to offer you a genetic material of optimum condition and with responsibility and seriousness in the business. Welcome back to this cattle ranch. You will be well received. Get to know it, and make the best decisions for your cattle ranch, and we are ready to give you the information you may need. Thank you very much.